Welcome everyone to this newly named Workspace Wednesday. So all the updates for the end user announced from Google through July and August. And like Chris said, I think there's 42 slides to get through, and we want to have a chat about some of these things at the end. So I am going to rattle through them. I think because I made the ISTE announcements in June, and I left those slides in just in case I didn't, just to make sure I didn't miss any. I think there might be a couple of duplicates, but we'll skip over those. If I'm repeating myself, just tell me, and I'll jump over them. That's fine. So smart chips have been in Google Docs for quite some time yet, and when you do searches in your Drive and in your Mail and in cloud search and things, you get those little smart chips pop up so you can filter your searches a bit more efficiently. They're now beginning to appear more and more in Sheets. They've been there a little while, but you can now can add smart chips in as emails, Drive, Docs, YouTube, and Maps, and they work the same as you do in Google Docs, in that if you hover over them for a map, for example, you get the option to preview that smart chip within the Google Sheet rather than opening it as a separate tab. So it kind of the workflow become that much more efficient. So those are coming up. And if they may well already be here because these were the early ones. Working locations we use just to let people know where we are. It's really handy. You can set it at the top of your calendar. You know, I'm thinking about if you're multiple locations, it's great for you to be able to see where all your team are if they're moving around. So it's a great thing to do. And you've got more functionality in that. You can actually have it repeating things. You can set dates and times and things. There are some ready-made locations in there if they've been added in the admin panel, but people can also add their own if it's, you know, a location, you know, if it's Costa Coffee and they want to add that in, then they can also add their own in as well, should they want to. And a recurring pattern, did I mention that? We talked about these yesterday in the Techie Tuesday updates, and when I first read this, I said, well, I wonder what a school might use that for. And James quite rightly pointed out, if you book your venue out to external companies, to be able to actually get them to pay for it in the calendar invite where they're booking their 3 hours of badminton on a Saturday or the use of the field or whatever it happens to be, that means that your cash flow is better because you get the money in ahead of time, which is great. So you can now do that in the appointment scheduler. If you haven't got appointment scheduler in your calendar, go into your settings and you need to turn it on. If it says appointment slots, it means you haven't turned appointment scheduler on. Appointment slots was the old version. It's really clunky, really unuser friendly, but appointment scheduler is really neat. We use it loads, but you do need to have a Stripe account attached to the calendar so that you can actually collect that money. And it is only Stripe account. I suspect things like PayPal and other payment systems will come along soon, but currently it's only Stripe. So you've got to have a Stripe account set up, turned on by the admin, and then you can add it to your calendar accordingly, and then people can pay ahead of time. We almost certainly will start using this. I think we haven't got it done yet, but I bet we won't be long before because it makes life so much simpler for us, just for people to pay for the time as and when they need it. It'd be fantastic. This I've used this loads already. I don't know if you used it at all, Chris. In a Gmail at the bottom, you've got a little calendar icon. If you click on that, you've got two options. You can create an event there and then. So if you're having a conversation with someone, me and Adam are saying, look, when can we meet? What about this? What about that? We eventually agree a time. I can go create an event, just drag the event in the calendar. It creates the event, pops it in the email. I just send the reply. So it's really, really quick and neat to do. But if we still can't agree time, and he says, Paul, can you let me know what time you've got today? I can go off a time that I'm free. I drag over the different amounts of time that I'm free today. Those get added into the email automatically as little icons. I can decide how long each appointment is. It could be 30 seconds or 30 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever. And then Adam would then get the email response with all those little piles in there. He'd click on the one he wanted, and that would automatically make the calendar appointment. So it's really, really neat little way to make, you know, if you're coaching people at your college and you need to make an appointment to meet with them to catch up, yeah, these are the times I've got today. Just click on it and it's really neat. Fantastic it is. And so you can see right by that, the second picture on the left, little calendar icon near the pencil and the three dots. It's really,
I must admit, Paul, obviously I've got my book a meeting with me scheduled in, which is on my footer, but I've not used that. But it makes so much sense because you're forever flicking between the email and your actual calendar and all the information you need, and it'll automatically add in the people, I guess, who are in
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
email as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely.
that's a lovely little feature.
I've got
what
appointment
time
schedulers, Chris,
Mhm.
but mine's set the earliest they can make it is 18 hours ahead. Just
Right.
so that, you know, if someone, I don't let people book an appointment on that day because I've already got a plan for today. I want to get the things, you know what I mean? I don't want to. So, and it won't matter if they're desperate, they can email me and say, look, can you meet today? And I'll say, yes, of course. But generally speaking, I set it to at least the next day. Whereas this guy can give them time on that very day, which is really neat.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Like that.
It's great, really great little tool. So moving on. This one I'm not so convinced about. If I wanted to share a document with any of you and we were in a Google chat, I would get the URL, paste it in there and click send. What they're suggesting is that I type a message, highlight some text, click on the hyperlink and paste the thing into there. That's more clicks, not less. So whilst it makes it look prettier, I'm thinking, does it really make that much difference? It's not. I don't think it's one I will be using. But it's there should you want to use it. Makes things look a little bit prettier, but I think you're not a big deal about the way it looks currently. Okay, so those of you who aren't aware, Data Studio as was, which is this kind of visualization tool for all your data. If you're not using it, it's free to use. It's definitely worth having a look at it. It's now called Looker Studio. And if you've got connected sheets that are running a pivot table in there, your viewers, the people that you set as view only, have got the option to add more filters and measures in there should they want, so they can interrogate the data in a little bit more detail. I only know the very basics of Looker Studio, if I'm honest. I can kind of set one up and do some basic stuff. I've never actually tried a pivot table in there, and I've never tried connected sheets. That literally says that you've got multiple sheets connected into the same Looker Studio, so you've got a bigger data set. With Education Plus, don't forget, you've also got links to BigQuery. The advantage of BigQuery is you've got massive data sets. If you're looking at all your results across the year, BigQuery servers move much quicker than Sheets servers, so you'll get a much quicker, faster response when you update it and things like that. So it makes a big difference to the speed with which the Looker Studio report works. So it's good. I mean, BigQuery rather needs a bit of setting up, doesn't it, and things. I've not got the skill to do that, but with large data sets, it's definitely the better option, particularly as it's built into the cost of your Education Plus account. So that's worth thinking about. Looker Studio is free though, generally. Emojis in Sheets, when this arrived, I thought, yeah, okay. But actually, I've already started using it. So we often have Google Sheets where we track our interactions with our customers, schools and colleges and things. So rather than me writing a note saying, I've sent them an email, I've phoned them up, and I've still not got through, I can actually put a little email icon in there and a little phone icon in there. People know I've done the tasks that I needed to do. So it's actually, for us, it's actually really rather neat. And it's a common form of language, isn't it now? I know we don't necessarily think of it as language, but it is, people know what these things mean. So it's not a bad thing that there's a quick way to pass the information over should you want to. So that's nice that you can do that now. If you've got your meeting rooms all set up, this works in Google Meet hardware as well as standard calendar stuff. If you've got all your rooms and resources set up in your admin panel, when people come to book a room, it's kind of AI is kicking in a little bit more, and it'll actually make some suggestions about the ones that they might well choose to use based on their location, based on their most frequently used rooms and things. So it'll help them make the right choice about booking the rooms. If you don't use the rooms and resources option in the admin panel, it's worth having a look at it. It does take a bit of setting up because all the things that are bookable, whether it's a room or your field or a minibus or a computer trolley or whatever it happens to be, as long as you've got everything in there, it means that if someone books it for their meeting, someone else tries to book it, they won't be able to do it. So it prevents that double booking thing. And it might be you've already got a system for booking all these resources and it works perfectly well. And if it's not broken, don't fix it. But if there are times when you do get double bookings and it's hard to manage that, then have a think about your room and resources. And you have to be, multiple sites like both of you have, you've got to set up the buildings, all the locations and buildings and all the rooms. So it does take a bit of doing. But I think now there's an import if you wanted to do it as an import. But it just gives you, once it's all in place, it gives you a better interface to make choices about the rooms and resources you're going to use and attach to the meeting that you've booked in your calendar. Which is great. My slide deck's moving very slow today. So you can now have 50,000 members in a Google chat space. You're already going to make a space just to have 50,000 members in it, aren't you? Fantastic. I don't know. I think we might have some universities that are probably 50,000. And I think is Leeds City College 35,000. I don't know how large is Sheffield.
I don't know what our enrolments are this year.
I mean, I don't think Peterborough is that large, is it?
No, about 10,000 students.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we would want to create a group with all students in.
There's one work scenario where I'm thinking it might be possible. You can now create a workspace where only a very small number of people can post messages, and everyone else just gets view only rights. So as a digital notice board for the whole school, and you wouldn't just post there, would you? You'd have other forms of communication, because if you're posting in one place, chances are you get missed. But actually, to set that up so senior leadership can make their daily announcements if they need to, and everyone in the organisation can see it, that might actually work quite well. But yeah, to have a full blown for everyone to be able to add comments, add tasks, add documents, all within a single chat space, that's probably too large to manage, isn't it, sensibly? But just as a notifications only, a digital notice board, then that might well work. And second stage then is, because you've got so many members potentially in a single chat group, you can also now search for them rather than having to scroll all the way down to find the person, because I think they're organised in alphabetical order in the when you're going to look at the members. But you can actually you've got a search bar that will appear to allow you to find them if you have got a very large group. This is great, and I was checked this morning. Actually, I haven't used the alt text on this slide deck. I normally always do. If you want to check back on my previous ones, there's normally always an alt text in each of the images in my slide decks. The alt text, if you're not familiar, is the text that gets read by a screen reader. And if it's not there, it'll tell the person using the screen reader that it's still an image, don't forget, and then go on to the next bit of text. And they might miss the information that tells them it's the next bit of text and think, well, what's that describing? Is that the image or not? So it could potentially be quite confusing. This now appears in the image options tile that pops up when you're manipulating an image in any way, shape or form in for the thing. So it just means you've got less clicks to get that alt text in there, and the screen reader will be able to manage it that much better. So that's really great. Makes life much simpler to keep that in there. And I always tell myself, I don't know who's going to see this. That's why I always do it. But like I say, I think I haven't done it with this one, and I apologize for that. But ordinarily, I always do. Okay, this is brilliant. I am so delighted that this is happening. If you add a hand-in date for an assignment in Google Classroom, once you've added that in, directly below, you've got the option to close the submission after the due date. That wasn't the case until very recently. And what could happen is that a student could go back into an assignment, unsubmit their work after the hand-in date, and then resubmit it again. And that's a nuisance for the teacher. They've got to go into the document, change the version history back to the date before the submission, and then mark that on there, which is a nuisance. This way they can't submit, and they also can't unsubmit, because my worry was that sometimes with Google tools they do half a job but they don't quite finish it. They've done it this time. The submission date they can no longer hand in. There is then a question about how do you deal with all the lates, so you've got to think about how you manage that. I mean, there's not going to be a huge number around, but there might be one or two. But it also means that the student can't go into the assignment and unsubmit their work, add to it, and then resubmit it. So they can't do either of those kind of workflows. So that's great that that's there.
Yeah, Paul, we've done some testing with this particular feature, and it is a fantastic feature. And actually, they've done it really quite well. So if a student tries to submit work after the close date, it will come up with a message on the screen saying something along the lines of, the teacher is no longer accepting submissions for this particular task or assignment. But what it does do, it allows the student to then type in a message which they can hit send, which is delivered to the teacher.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and then the teacher, so it could be, I didn't submit because I broke my leg, I was in hospital or something like that, or you've forgotten to give me an extension or something like that. But then the teacher can then go in and review that and then unlock the assignment just for that student.
Oh, right, for the individual student.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, it works pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you able to give extensions if a student asks for an extension? Can you?
You can you can allow them to submit, but I don't think you can say you've got another week.
All right. Okay.
So what we've been doing, if for those students who have extensions, we've been setting up a separate assignment slot,
All right.
and then giving the dates different and just assigning it to those students so that the
Yeah,
others are not aware that you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So you can unlock it just to allow them to submit, and then you can lock it back again.
Excellent.
Which is it's pretty neat actually.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
Mm.
they do a good job most of the time, don't they? Occasionally they'll do a function and there's a really basic step here missing because they've not got enough teachers on the team, I think sometimes.
Yeah.
But this one seems to be worked really well, so I'm really
It
pleased.
Mm.
And about time. I've been pestering for this for years. Anyway, moving on. If you were keen to see the line numbers, there's clearly a problem with it. They've postponed release of it, and there's no date as of now. That was announced in June, I think, but it's not going to happen because we can't work out what the problem is. So if you are joining a meet, I'm just going to close the door. We've got guys on the roof, and then one of my dogs just doesn't like any kind of noise. You didn't know that. It was a rescue dog, bloody thing. Anyway, if you are joining a Google Meet on your iOS device, you can now share your video, audio, or music whilst you're presenting. That's not available on Android yet, but it will be soon. But if you mute the audio on your device, it mutes the audio in the Meet as well, just to be aware of that. But that's neat. That I mean, I think most of the time schools, if they are on Meets, they tend to be on the computer, don't they? But we do have some people that do join us via mobile devices, so that's handy. Rarely do they present from the mobile, but occasionally they do.
Just a point on that one. Strange that it's coming to Android after iOS.
You know, it is strange, but I do
unusual,
it happens a lot that way around. I don't know why, what the coding challenges are of Android, because Google own Android.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I thought they'd have been on that one first. Yeah, but
it does surprise me that, but there we go.
You're aware that there's an issue in Google Classroom at the moment where you can annotate. If you're on a tablet, you can annotate students' work.
Yeah.
But it does not work on Android, but it does work on iPads. And it was working on Android, and then it broke, and they have not fixed it. And this is going on for about 6 or 8 months. It's still not working as far as I believe.
Okay.
But it's always worked on iPads, which is just
Tony, it's just started to play up on the iPads as well now.
Has it?
Yeah, the Google Classroom app closes down.
Does it?
When you mark work, it just closes the whole app.
So you can no longer annotate on a tablet.
So what a lot of teachers have done here is they've turned off automatic updates and kept the old Classroom app.
Oh God!
It's when it updates, it stops.
That's not good at all.
No, because I mean that was again that was a reasonably good function. The problem I had with that was it created a PDF onto which you annotated rather than annotated onto the original document, which I always thought was a bit of a nuisance. And you have to complete the marking of a single document. So if you happen to be disturbed halfway through, fire alarm or whatever, and you come back and try and do it, and you haven't saved it, then you end up having to make another one. So you have 2 documents with 2 half annotations and things. So it was good. I didn't know it had stopped working. Actually, I missed that completely. Anyway, thank you very much for that. Moving on, you can now a single group, a group email, can now be a member of 30,000 shared drives. If that excites you, then you've probably got too many shared drives. Blimey, why would you want to do that? But apparently you can. But you can only add up to 100 group accounts. So if you've got hundreds of thousands of people you want to add for whatever reason to a single shared drive, then you can do it. But there is a limit to how many group accounts you can add to a shared drive. And whilst I was doing that, I thought that's a ridiculously large number. Why have they chosen that? It's very arbitrary. I was having a read of all the other things, and I picked some of those caps which I want are both interesting and ridiculous in equal measure, I think. So there's you can only have up to 400,000 items in a single shared drive. And again, if you've got that many, that needs to be divided into, well, at least 4, I would probably say, because you're not, how are you going to find stuff? It just becomes unmanageable. Shared drives that are visible at any one time are up to 1,000. Again, probably too many still for a single person. Why would they want that? But the one that might be, and you'd probably even struggle with video, but the daily upload limit on a shared drive is 750 gigabytes. Now, if you had a very video evidence heavy course, and you were, rushing to get it all up at the end of a course before you submitted, then you might just tip that, might you? But even with video, that'd be a hell of a lot of video, wouldn't it? But with standard files, I don't think you're ever going to meet that limit, I don't think. So, but just to make you aware, there's I think it's on the link. If you go to the link, it lists all the different limits there are with Google shared drives, just to, if you want to fully explore all of those. Does anybody use Canvas at all? Yeah. So you can now set Google assignments, or you can basically link your Google Drive to Canvas, and you can deliver assignments through Canvas with those 7 apps that are available to you there. So it's just actually basically join the two together, so you can set the assignments through Canvas as well, which is kind of quite neat.
Paul, do we know if that's an update? Because we've got Canvas here, but we do have Google on it already. So is it an update? It
is an update. So see, we don't have Canvas, so I didn't know what the previous situation was. I did have a little look, but I couldn't find anything. So it must have been quite a while ago when they started to integrate it. I'm wondering then whether it's actually, there are more things that you can add to the assignments, maybe.
Yeah.
Because they specifically referenced the 7 apps. Maybe it was only, maybe forms, Jamboards, and drawing have been added or something. I don't know. That's all I can think. So.
I'll have a look, Paul, and I'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah, that'd be handy to know, actually. Yeah, if there is an update, but that's all I can think in that example.
Okay, thank you.
This is good if you are still teaching online, Education Plus and Teaching and Learning Upgrade only, because Q&A is only available for those accounts. You can set it to moderate all comments. So if you're on a public meeting, you've got parents and you're worried that someone might start to kick off and be inappropriate, for example, or students might be inappropriate or whatever, you can set it so that the hosts can approve. So each of the comments before they appear in the Q&A get approved before they're that hasn't got an implication. If you are teaching online, you would struggle to do the approving and the teaching as well, don't forget. So you'd need a co-host to be your approver for you. So it's worth thinking about that. But I think that potentially can be really useful. If any kind of public meeting that you might want to hold online, the option to approve those comments. And you can see the little screen there. If someone makes some inappropriate comment, Mr. Farrell is short, fat and bald, I'd want to delete that because I'm only short and bald.
Yeah, we actually just on that, Paul. Not on the short fat, but I'm not
my terrible joke.
No, not at all. But yeah, with anything where we're doing a live stream, whatever, we always have a couple of people on there, don't we? Always one just looking at questions and monitoring that. So it's a great opportunity to kind of feed those through and approve them as needed. So that's a nice little feature, that actually. That's good. You can also start the same question that you sometimes get 2 or 3 people asking the same question. And it gets a little bit messy in the stream as well, doesn't it, when you're trying to follow where you're up to? So again, you could just use one of those and just kind of hide or delete the other couple that have come through. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and don't forget, what you can do now then is you can turn off the chat stream or the in-call messages and just have Q&A, because you can't approve the in-call messages, but you can these. So just like I said, that public meeting just gives you that level of control and to keep the language appropriate, which is what you want, isn't it? But Education Plus and Teaching and Learning only with those. That's a good one, I think. Anyone use Skyward Cumulative? I'm going to move on. I think it's an American thing. I think it's another kind of learning management system. If you are using an encrypted service for some of your documents, and don't forget that's a third-party additional tool that you would have to buy, set up in your admin panel so that people could make use of it. But if you are, you can now bulk import Excel files into that, and they will arrive ready encrypted as Google Sheets. But there are some limits: 5 million cells, 20 megabyte size, and any feature in Excel that it doesn't know or understand just ignores it. So you've got to be certain that you want it. But I'm not aware of any of our customers. It's not a big thing just yet, client side encryption, but it's a third-party tool you've got to buy anyway. And I think it might be the cost. If it'd been built into the admin panel, I think people might have considered it for some files, but because it's not actually part of the service, it's an additional service to pay for. I think it's not being used currently. And you've got a pretty good level of security anyway. As long as you're careful with your shares, that shouldn't be a problem at all. So this was an interesting one when this one came up. I didn't even know you couldn't delete your trash folder or empty your trash folder in Google shared drives. but apparently you couldn't. But now you can delete them forever straight away without having to wait. But they do automatically delete after 30 days anyway. But I am aware that certainly in Google Drive, that automatic deletion after 30 days isn't consistently applied by Google, I don't think. I mean, it certainly wasn't last time I checked it. I haven't checked very recently, but it did used to be a bit hit and miss that sometimes it'd empty and sometimes it wouldn't. So, but if you feel the need to do some radical tidying up, if you're hitting your data limits and you need to tidy stuff up and you've done a load of stuff into the trash, then you can go and clear all that away nice and neatly. So that's kind of handy to have. This is quite nice. We use this. I think we will use this a lot to refer people. So if we're doing a major proposal to a significant customer for a load of work and Chrome devices and support and all that kind of stuff, we'll have a large document, lots of headings in it. In the past, you could add a bookmark to the heading and then send them to the bookmark. Whereas now it looks like the bookmark is being built straight into the heading. So you can actually get a link to the heading. And I could see Chris is doing the pricings of Education Plus. I could send him the link to that and say, can you fill out this section for me, Chris, please? And it take him straight to that section in a very large document rather than arriving at the top of the page and him having to scroll down to find it. So that's really nice, I think, for large documents, direct link to that particular heading. It does require to use the headings, of course, the ready-built headings in Google Docs and things. So it doesn't just work. If you go bold, it doesn't automatically create it as a heading, but I don't think it would quite work on those. I don't know. I need to try that. So if you're on a mobile device and you put the people chip information in the directory, and there's a people chip inside a Google Sheet, when you hover over it, you get that people chip pop up for that user on the mobile device as well. And it didn't pop up on mobiles until recently. It's always popped up as long as they've been there on computers and things, but it's not popped up on the mobile, so it does now. But those chips are only as good as the information you put in the directory. So in that example they've got there, they put all that information in there. I mean, they could have imported it, with a single CSV import, but they put that information in rather than, apart from the she, can you put the she, her bit in? You probably could. I think the she, her bit is individuals can customize that because, of course, you don't quite know their pronouns, which ones they're going to be. But the rest, I think, just comes from the directory. Does exactly what it says on the tin. Emojis in Google Sites, I don't think we need to dwell on that. I think that's nice and simple. People will enjoy that, I'm sure. Google practice sets. When you do a practice set, you get normal pattern was question arrived, answers in, Google suggested some skills, and that combination of all that information, Google then suggested some resources. You'd get up to 3 per question, and then there'd be an extra help section where there'd be another 10 or so resources. You can now decide what those resources are. So if Google puts in a video on quadratic equations or health and hair loss in men or whatever it happens to be the topic on, and it's not the one that you would rather like to use, you can delete that one and go and find your own and insert your own. And you can also you get a little tile, little note that appears. You can write those for yourself. What you can't yet do, which I thought would be really useful, is you can't insert or paste anything into those notes. So if you've got a perfect slide that describes that from the lesson that you want, in order for them to answer that question, you can't copy or make that slide into an image, which you can do, and then insert it into the tile, which would have been nice, but you can type into it, that's fine, and you can add your own videos, and you can decide the sequence of the 3 resources within the single question, and you can also add the 10 resources in the extra help bit. It's exciting for 2 reasons. One, you get the resources you absolutely want. The fact that Google already suggests some, I think, is a good thing, because sometimes there might be a better resource out there, and because you found one, you think, well, why do I need to go and search for another? And Google's suggestions might be better, so it's always worth checking them before you decide to add your own. But additional to that, you adding in your own resources, you are teaching the AI engine. So hopefully the speed with which the AI engine learns appropriate resources will increase, because all the teachers, 170 million users of 150 million users of Google Classroom, and hopefully now, and those on paid versions will be teaching the AI engine, these are better resources, so that Google's hit rate will also increase and be more accurate. So that's great.
That's probably one of the most requested. I know practice sets hasn't been out that long, but your own resources is one of the most requested features, wasn't it? So they've obviously got
Yeah.
onto that straight away. I know a lot of the resources as well it pulls in might be a little bit American sometimes, potentially. Whereas now you can follow your actual teaching plan and put in resources that are much more relevant to your style of teaching. So that's a great one, Paul. Yeah, nice to see that.
And teaching and learning and education plus only, of course. And all your teachers do need to be verified teachers, don't forget, for all this stuff to work inside Google Classroom. So it's definitely worth just checking they're in there. If they, I presume they still works if they're pending. I don't know. As long as they're in the group, I would think they probably would. But I think you can set it in the admin panel, can't you, to allow pending teachers to create classrooms. That would probably be the version you need to do for the pending teachers to work. Anyway, moving on. I'm not doing very well. Simplify. Okay, this I think is great as well. You can share class templates and blocks of classwork with other people just via a link. So you pop the link in an email saying, "Here's the link to that set of stuff from this class," or "Here's this class template." And they don't need to be a teacher in there, because if you were a teacher in there, they could make themselves a copy, couldn't they? They don't need to be a teacher. So your faculty leads, your subject leads could create a classroom template and then share that with the other teachers in their department to make sure that they follow the same route. It has to be a properly assigned assignment for them to get that in the copy that they get sent. If it's a draft, it doesn't appear. So if you put all your topic headings in and did 30, 40 assignments as drafts, they would only get the topic headings. But equal that would also be quite useful. You want to have all your faculty departments to have the same topic headings because they're all doing the same course. You just build a single classroom with all the topic headings in, share that with them, and they'll get the topic headings in their classes when they make their own. So it's a great little tool.
Yeah, the biggest thing I think I've said, the biggest issue with this is you can't do it between classrooms that you own. And I think, I'm not sure about this, I don't think you can share between classrooms if you are a teacher in both classrooms as well, which is a bit annoying. So
you can take a copy, can't you?
We fed that back.
Yeah.
Is that on general release now?
No, it's on beta release now.
Oh, right, okay.
When I'll share the slide deck with you, David, there's a beta sign up link on the slide.
It's actually really quite good as long as you're sharing it to other teachers. I mean, I would like to be able to create a classroom of my own and create a template and then import those resources into some of my other classes, and I can't do that. It won't let you do it.
No, okay. Well, I suppose you've got the option to make a copy, haven't you? Because you're a teacher in there, so you've got another route to it. And that the make a copy, don't forget, removes students, removes any chat that was in the stream, and makes all the assignments drafts.
Yeah, but it duplicates all of your materials. So, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but if you've got like, I don't know, a presentation and you get 10 copies of that classroom, you'll have 10 copies of that presentation.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Which is okay if you can manage that. I like to have all of mine within a folder, and then they're just linked to all of the different classrooms, so I can edit one and it updates all of the classrooms. So as long as you can manage that, then that's fine. Yeah,
and that's true. Yeah, it's the single documents and sharing those, isn't it? When you get a copy of your own, that's not such an issue, but it's if it's a single document, your resources that are read only, that kind of stuff. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I see now. Okay, thank you very much for that, Tony. So Gmail translation is now available on mobile devices, which is great. Does exactly what it says on the tin. That's fantastic. I don't need to dwell on that particularly. This is quite nice. I've got a duplicate of this one. I know that. You can set kind of a branding style in the admin panel, and when the user comes to use slides or Google Forms in their templates or in themes in forms, they've got your ready-made kind of corporate slide back, slide designs for them to use, so that you get that corporate image. And I think maybe lessons not so much, but if they're doing public things, so that that everyone will go and use a standard set of slides, and so that I think will be really useful. I haven't tested this because when I looked earlier in the month, it wasn't available on ours yet. But the thing for me that could, I don't know if you're aware, if you import a theme So we've got a C Learning theme, which is this slide deck here. If you import a theme, when you go to the layout options, all the options of the designed theme appear in the layout. So I think in the standard layout for a standard Google slide deck, there's about 10 different slide layouts. In our theme, there's about 15 or 20. Can't remember exactly how many. And the number of slides increases in the layout. So you get all the slide layouts that you've designed in the theme, which is quite nice. And I'm hoping that this, with these templates, will do the same, that the layout bit will change. So you can make sure that they're choosing the right ones for all the different slide layouts, whether they want bullet headings or just an image or a blank slide or whatever it happens to be. So I haven't checked that because when I last checked, it wasn't available for us, but I will check and update next month. But that's good. I think it gives people more of a corporate image if you want to do that. This also will be really important for us because we're a commercial organization, of course. The fact that you can have a digital signature on a Google Doc. It might also be useful for you things like new staff signing contracts and things. Yeah, we're no longer bound by. It's not true. Some people still are, but legally we're not bound by wet signatures, as they're called. When people actually print it off, sign it, scan it back in, and send it to you. So a digital signature is more than adequate in the eyes of the law now. So that's absolutely fine. So the fact you can do that without having to print the thing and waste paper and then rescan it and send it back again is really good, I think. So. That's in beta though, so you've got to request that if you want it. But Education Plus only. This is a really interesting one, and I've added 2 or 3 plays with this. I've added Google Keep as my default notes and lists option and I'm on Pixel device, so it's a Google device. I've asked it to make me a list; it hasn't managed it. I've asked me to read me a list; it hasn't managed it. I've asked me to add a note to a list, my shopping list. I can't get it to work, so I need to explore further. There must be another setting. But if you theoretically, if you say I want Keep to be my default lists and notes option in my, so if you speak to it, say add a list, add baked beans to my shopping list. Excuse me, it should just do that. It could be, I think I've got 4 accounts on the phone. So it could just be that it gets confused if I've moved to another account in Keep and then send a message and it's not the account that, I don't know. That's my guess, but I've got to explore further with that. So this is great. And this is one of the things that we've kind of just talked about that this is half a job, I think. Sorry, Google. So I'm gone back to my slide deck. I'm not in the meat anymore. And you can probably see a little red dot. And actually I can now annotate onto a slide deck and make, any annotations that I want. I can change the color of the pen to a different color and so on and so forth. So you see, it's a great little tool, but there's no way to save it. So whilst we can
we
do
don't
all
have
those
that
things,
feature yet, unfortunately. I keep looking.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great little feature, but I want to be able to save it, because if you're doing that in a lesson, then the annotations you made might be significant to the understanding of the students. So when they come to the work later, homework or whatever, they might need those annotations, and currently there's no way to save it. So that question mark, please send the feedback if you think this is a good tool and you need to get it better. So anyway, moving on. I talked about the smart chips in Sheets earlier, and you can do it in bulk now. So for the place chips, if you've got all the places in there, you can highlight them all and actually convert them all to smart chips all in one, rather than just doing them one at a time. So that's kind of quite neat. Just saves you a few mouse clicks. This one, I quite like it, but I'm struggling, and perhaps someone can help me with this. It doesn't save me any time. If I'm going to create a drop-down, the drop-down panel would arrive and I'd type the answers in. But in order for this function to work, I've got to type the answers in anyway. And what it does is, once you type the answers in, if you highlight them and then create a drop-down, it populates the fields with the highlighted cells. So I'm thinking, well, I've already typed them in. I don't think it saves me any time. So I'm struggling to know its purpose, but it's there. So if you have got a drop-down, I suppose if you're creating lots of drop-downs and you've got the text from somewhere else, it already existed, saves you typing them out again, I suppose. There is that. And I don't think you can, in a Google form, if you've got a answers in a table, you can copy and paste them into the answer fields in a Google question, and it will populate them in a Google form. It works that way. This doesn't work here. You can't copy and paste. It doesn't manage that. So that's perhaps why they're doing it. But it's there should you need to use it. And drop downs, I think, are great. And it will read drop downs. So if you're using queries, for example, you can add drop downs in, and it will read the value of the query and adjust the value of the drop down rather, and adjust the query accordingly. So they do work, they get referenced in other functions. So they're definitely worth thinking about using if you've got text that needs to work in that manner. And this is just a simple reorganization. They've added lots of new features to the right click in Google Drive, and it all got a bit messy. So they just tidied it up a little bit. That's all. You'll see some submenus in that right click. That's all that is. New Google Chats have got the inline threaded, so that you can actually get that third panel appears where you can got like a sub discussion where everything connects to that one response, rather than it being all in a single great big long theme. Makes it neater and tidier, makes it easier to read, which is really neat. I'm pleased that it's there. And they were going to be upgrading it, and I think the original timeline was it would already have been finished now, but it's starting in September, and it'll be complete by Q1. I can't imagine. I mean, I suppose millions and millions of people using this stuff. I suppose it takes them a while to upgrade the old ones, but that seems like a long while, because from now to Q1, that's 6 months to get to all the updates. So if you're one of the last domains to be done, you could be waiting until March before you get that inline threaded. This is only for the old ones. If you create a new a new chat space, then you get the inline threaded straight away. It's only the old ones that this refers to. But it's just the timeline's got stretched a bit, that's all, just to be aware of it. Already sharing Classroom, this is me repeating. I did say I'd done some repeats and didn't keep access, but the early access request is there. And I think we actually missed the early access date. I did this earlier in August for some people. I think that's been missed now. We've already talked about that, but you can actually add your own files, Education Plus and Teaching Learning Plus only in Google Classroom. I mentioned the branding when I talked about slides. This is just a little GIF showing you the branding options. The themes are already there, ready built for the people to use in Google Forms. They need to be added in the admin panel, but once they're there, people can just choose the themes and they'll be there for them to choose. Do people use Google Voice? If you do, you can basically give other people options to manage groups. So if you've got an office group, and they all take it in turns to answer external calls, and someone can actually reroute those external calls to individual numbers within that office group of users. And you can decide on duration of ring settings and working hours. So it doesn't have to be admin now. You can, in effect, you've got a sub admin where the individuals like the office manager can manage how calls get taken within their group of phone numbers. So it just allows you to do that with a bit more granular control. See message view counts in Google Chat. This wasn't available yesterday when I checked it, and I need to know with this, is it unique views? If it's just the number of views, in this example, as Anne Gray visited it 10 times, are they counting it just once? Because actually, if it's just the number of views, that's not as useful if you want to know if everyone's seen something, as opposed to unique views. So if you've got 50 people in a chat group and you've got 50 views, you need to know that that's 50 unique views, just 50 different users. So I need to try that. It wasn't available yesterday when I looked at this. So when it's available, I'll update in October, just to let you know which one it is. I'm currently driving my slide deck inside the Google Meet. I'm sure I've said this before because I think it's a great tool. I've got a kind of long lossage transport bar at the bottom of my screen, and I can move through the slides. I can also show my speaker notes. I can also have a co-presenter. So I could assign anyone in the Meet as a co-presenter, and you could move the slides backwards and forwards in the Meet as well. So if you're doing a two-hander, if Chris and I were doing a presentation and I'm doing the first 10 slides and then Chris takes over, we just add him in as a co-presenter. And when slide 11 arrives, Chris just takes over and we just carry on as normal. And no one notices, none of that, I'll stop sharing now while you share. There's none of that. It's all just very much more seamless, which is great. And if you do turn on speaker notes, if I was to turn on my speaker notes, my screen would get squished as demonstrated in the GIF there, but of course yours wouldn't. You wouldn't see the speaker notes. You would still see the live screen of the actual slide deck. So it doesn't make a difference to your views because you're not a co-presenter. So that's great. You can now add your own grading system in Google Classroom. And I had a quick go when it first came out a few days ago for us. And then someone asked a really good question yesterday. Said, can you have multiple grading scales within the same classroom? And the answer to that is I don't know, in case anybody's wondering. You can have multiple grading schemes. And I know you can have them by individual classrooms, but whether you can have more than one for teachers to choose from within a single classroom, I haven't tried that yet, and I don't actually know. But this is great because there are some, some of the courses that we do in this country just don't suit the grading systems that were there originally. The other nice thing is that once you've created the grading system, if you've got, 30 or 40 different courses from the same examining board, BTECs or whatever it happens to be, or that follow the same grading scales, you can copy that grading scales to any other classroom that you're a teacher in. So that's really neat. What there isn't is a copy all, which I think is probably right, because it wouldn't be the case that every single class would have exactly the same grading scale, probably. And certainly with exam boards and things.
Yeah, that's interesting, Paul, because that wasn't there a while ago, and now it's appeared.
All right, okay.
But interestingly, here on my screen here, it's called marking scale, not grading scale. But I mean, it's a simple little thing, but
yeah,
that's something else I'm going to have to make sure the staff know about.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots, isn't there? Yeah. David, do you want to ask a question?
Not so much a question. When this first came out, I was straight onto it because we have been screaming out for this forever. The teachers have been wanting to create their own scales. Just to kind of confirm, as far as I have been able to see, you can only have one marking scale per classroom. You can't have multiples.
Yeah, okay. So that's really helpful, David. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I mean, I kind of think it probably makes sense, because if it's, if you're going to mark to the exam spec each time, whatever that exam spec scale is, then you're going to do it. But there'll be some assignments where you wouldn't do that, but you could just have it unmarked, couldn't you? Ungraded, or whatever the phrases that Google use. So you've got the option that I think that will always be there, I presume. So that's good that's there. And we're getting there. We're getting making progress with it, aren't we? If you use Slack at all in your organization, as well as Google Chat, you can now get it so that both those kind of chat tools will synchronize in both directions with each other, which is great, but it needs to be powered by a third party in the middle, and that's Mio. So they basically built the interoperability between the two. And I'm presuming, I haven't even checked, but I just assume Mio will be a paid for service, because that's a substantial amount of work, isn't it? So if you do use both, then you've got a way to match the two together, should you want to. And then last one is Duet AI. These are the main announcements that when I've not listened to all of next, because I've been busy this week. I've done a little bit and caught these up and found these, but I haven't had a chance to fully explore them. And I haven't had a chance to find out any other next announcements, because I'm sure there are some. I'll have to include them in the next updates that we have. But you can see there's some really, creating original slides, writing emails, and I'm sure I've seen a video where they talk about, adding extra information about the style, whether it's formal or informal, whether it's to add a joke in, whether to, to move paragraphs around, or in the same way that you would interrogate and use the prompt to get a greater, more sophisticated response with Bard or any other the AI tools. You can do this, but it's integrated into your Google Apps tools, which I think is really quite nice. One of the things for us, I think, is the whole thing about proofreading. And again, I've not had a chance to explore this. We're still waiting to get our hands on Duet AI, but I'm hoping it's not just a kind of another version of a spell check and a sense check. It's more than that. It makes suggestions like Grammarly does, that there might be a better way to write this sentence and all that kind of stuff. But it's just gives you a teaser. And there are there will be trials available. And if you quickly want to mention about the trials, Chris, or if everyone already knows, I don't know, but it'd be worth repeating.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I know we covered it yesterday, but it's worth just mentioning again. This is something that is due to land on our reseller panel very shortly, and there's an option then for a 14-day 10-user trial. So once we know that it's on our reseller panel, we checked earlier this morning and it wasn't there. So as soon as it's available, I'll be sending out a general email to all our Workspace subscribers, just saying, you know, it's there. Would you like to take up a trial? I think, Paul, you said it's not the lengthiest of trials. So I think you need to probably be in a position where you're sort of ready to move this forward and get the right people onto this. So it's probably an idea just to think about how you might want to integrate and test this out before the trial goes live. The 2 weeks will just go in the blink of an eye, no doubt. But yeah, as soon as we can, we'll be in touch with everyone, obviously on the call today or on the mailing list, with details of how we can help you sign up for that.
And those are it. The next update is the early in. Didn't put the date in actually. I just realised that's just ISTE. I've already covered the ISTE one, so that's fine. So it's October the 3rd, 4th, 5th, something like that, I think. But you'll get usual pattern. Chris will send out the notification just the Thursday before, so you'll know when that's going to happen. Any thoughts about any of those? I've kind of flown through because there's literally 42 slides, I think, 43 slides.
Oh, very useful.
No, that's good, Paul. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
That's
that marking
good.
scales, I wasn't aware of that one. So that's something that I'm glad you brought that up, because otherwise I wouldn't have known. Because if you don't look, you don't know that they're there, do they? They just appear. So,
Yeah.
So
Are you reading that paper you sat on?
Yeah.
That model, isn't it?
Right.
Well, it's like if the phone rings, answer it. Well, no, you don't. Why? Who answers the phone when it's not ringing?
Yeah, exactly.
No. So yeah, if you don't know to look, you don't know to look.
Yeah.
So.
Tony, earlier you met when we're going through about the assignments, and now they can have proper cut-off dates for assignments. And you mentioned that you were able to open up an assignment for a student after the end date had gone.
Yeah.
Is that something you've been able to do because you're on the beta?
No, I don't think so.
Because that's one of the first things I spotted when we started looking at it, that when that cut-off date has come, I haven't found a way to unlock the assignment for just that one student.
So from what I understand, we did some testing last week, and I'll be honest, I can't remember it exactly. That seems like a year ago now. One of us pretended to be a student, and the other one was a teacher. And when I submitted late, and it gave me the option to send a message, which I did, to the teacher, and then the teacher looked at it, and I think it was at that point that the teacher was able to, once they got that message,
right?
If the student doesn't type anything and doesn't hit send, then the teacher won't know or won't get anything, won't get any notification. If you see what I mean.
I'll have a look at that.
Yeah,
That's
but I think
one thing I've not done.
I think it is something that I think to be really crystal clear in our heads, we ought to do that again, just to make sure exactly what happened. And I think I might do that this afternoon, just to double check that.
I'll have a look at that as well, because I've been through marks, I've been through the assignments, and
no, you don't see anything at all. It was only when the teacher got that message from the student who tried to submit late.
I'll have a look at that.
And then I'll be interested to see to hear what you think of it and what happens actually. But we'll give that a go again, just to make double sure. But it looked really good actually.
Yeah, because they definitely it does. Like I said, it was one of the first things I spotted when I saw that. Yes, finally, you can have a proper cut-off day. And then the very next thought was, right, so what if you do have a student that, whatever reason, they haven't been able to get on time, you know about this, how do you extend it without having to change the date and allow everybody?
Yeah, and that's what I thought. I was surprised. I expected that when I tried to submit late, it would just say, no, you can't submit because it's been closed. But it gave me this option to send a message to the teacher. So I thought, oh, all right, I'll put something in there, and I hit send, and then the teacher could then do some more stuff, which is
Right.
And I believe it just allowed him to allow submission just for this student.
I will have a look at that, sir. Thank you very much.
Really
you remember,
cool.
Tony, whether that was in the email, where they had to go back to Classroom to allow it?
No, it was in Classroom, I think.
Okay.
I think the notification was in Classroom. I can't remember now, which is why, because it was so long ago, even though it was last week, I need to do it again.
Yeah.
I need to be
I
crystal
use
clear
that.
about this. Yeah.
Yeah. Dust off me dummy student accounts and have a play myself, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank heavens it's here though. That I'm really grateful that we've got that, because I've been pestering for it for years.
Yeah, it's super.
So now we are done. Those are all the updates from July and August. I'm going to stop the recording now.